Hello everyone, once again from the capitalist dystopia of the United Kingdom, and today I guess we are talking about capitalists in some form. We are talking about anti-woke, anti-SJWs, but a bit of a twist on that because, we cover this a fair bit on this channel, but today what I wanted to focus on was former reactionaries, and this was all inspired by a post on, I think, Gaming Circle Jerk, and I'll read the post for you today. But then I thought it'd be fun, I'd ask my own followers, like, did you have an anti-SJW phase? And I'll talk about my own, relationship with that, because I definitely didn't, but I wanted to talk about, my experience of that through the years. But yeah, lots of you did. Some of you say, I helped you out of it, so that's really cool. And it's interesting how so many people who follow me, it's kind of, recent. It's, even, 2 years ago, but I guess, my audience are fairly young. And what I found fascinating about a lot of these replies is about why people become anti-SJWs. Now, I want to clarify a couple things, because when we're talking about, historically anti-SJWs, you didn't necessarily have to be a far-right conservative, because a lot of these types, like Geeks and Gamers, The Quartering, they were hiding their power levels of being, far-right. So you had a lot of people who weren't typically, actual proper fascists like anti-SJWs are today, more like people with confused politics, centrist, even some liberal types as well. And there's a whole host of reasons why they became anti-SJWs. I've made videos about the skeptic community. I've made videos about the influence of new atheism on the anti-SJW community online, and how the critiques of religion transitioned into critiques of feminism. So yeah, what I thought would be fun is just hear the testimony of former reactionaries and just kind of analyse why this grift has even worked in the first place, because I don't really know if it's still as strong as it was. There's so many copycat channels of The Quartering. Geeks and Gamers channel, to be honest, seems to be floundering these days, but it doesn't even seem to get much uploads. But then you have, the Geeks and Gamers alum like Ryan Kinnell and friends who do upload quite a lot and still get quite a lot of views. So I really wonder, to be honest, because it feels like now their appeal is more segmented into, you literally just have to be a conservative. You have to be on the far right pretty much to watch these guys. And honestly, I think what that insane rant about Starfield's pronouns revealed is that even a lot of people who used to be anti-SJWs, like creators like Chris Raygun, the Act Man, who might still share the anti-SJW politics of 2016, even they hate this stuff now. Because they're you're being a baby, going on a 2-minute rant because of pronouns. You are ridiculous, you're embarrassing, and this is also manufactured as well, and we can see through it. So, I want to talk about all of this today. Please like the video, and in the comments, pretty simple, if you had an anti-SJW phase, please, if you want, share it in the comments. And I feel like a lot of people who follow my work will actually be saying they did have this phase. One thing, I'll make the small caveat: having an anti-SJW phase between 2016, 2019 is not the same as having a fascist phase. And I've seen some people on the left try and normalise, everyone's had a fascist phase. And it's no, they haven't. Anti-SJW phase, sure. Fascist phase? No. Anyway, follow me on social media at the Kavernacle, on Twitter, on Threads, on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on everything. Consider becoming a patron. Trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible. Benefits include access to the Discord server, access to my Nintendo Switch friend code, and access to old exclusive content. And also, check out my subreddit and check out my second channel. The links to everything down in the description. Now, talking about my own experience with anti-SJWs, as someone who grew up while that was a big thing. I'm 27 now, so 10 years ago with that Anita Sarkeesian stuff, I was 17. And then, going through all the backlash to the Star Wars films, I was in my early 20s and stuff. Now, I've made 2 videos before. One about my political evolution. This is an old one. And I guess one about my relationship with atheism. And maybe it would be a bit surprising that I never became an anti-SJW, because I believed in more new atheist thinking when I was 19. I've explained how my political identity could be explained by left-wing contrarian, because I'd support the conservatives when I was 18, just because all my friends were supporting Labour and stuff. And I do that because I thought, they don't understand politics, so they're just being emotional. But I realised later on it was because I was a bit of a contrarian, because at the same time I supported them over Labour, I supported Bernie Sanders and liked Che Guevara. So I think that's what explained my politics. And I think that's why it also explains why I never became, an anti-SJW, because I always thought they were idiots. Like, always thought they were idiots. Always thought their critique of feminism, their critiques of minorities representation was stupid and ridiculous. Like, I never bought into it. I will say some of that discourse did infect my mind a bit about political correctness, but only when it came to religion. So basically I thought, like, because of political correctness, people won't have a dialogue about Islam in particular, and they're scared because they don't want to be called a racist, right? And I wouldn't really link these things together, although I do believe people maybe are a bit too sensitive when it comes to critiquing religion. I wouldn't lump that in with, like, feminism or, like, political correctness from that understanding, right? So even though I might have said that, I don't think I meant it in the way that political correctness means that, like, I hate something for political correctness, which actually means I hate something for having diversity, because I never thought about it like that. I thought it was just, like, more like polite politics where people were scared to be seen as racist for critiquing something like Islam back in the day. And, I still have massive critiques of conservative religion, but I don't think it's actually an issue, because I am, like, actually a communist, and I don't think anyone's going to call me a racist if I start critiquing Islam, because I do it fairly regularly, and I've done it a lot this year, actually, in many videos. So I never had an anti-SJW phase in the strictest sense of the word, but because I was into, like, atheism, new atheism type stuff when I was like 18, 19, there was some carryover into those communities. But a lot of you have had these anti-SJW phases, and it's pretty fascinating why. There's a whole host of reasons. And a lot of them seem to stem from growing up in very conservative households, which I never did. My parents aren't extremely political, but they are fairly liberal and tolerant in most areas. I grew up in a very diverse school. Obviously, Catholicism is like a minority religion in the UK anyway, but most people I was friends with, went to school with, from immigrant backgrounds. So I was never, like, super xenophobic or went through, like, a really racist phase or anything like that. I was never, like, that isolated from things like that, so I think I wasn't very susceptible. And also I was always, pretty intelligent as a teenager as well. I always got, like, very good grades when I was a bit older, like 16, 17, 18. And then I think I've always had good critical thinking skills, and I've always thought myself as smart. So when people are making stupid critiques like The Force Awakens is bad because there's a black stormtrooper, I'm just never going to entertain that diversity has somehow ruined Star Wars or something, especially considering what Star Wars is. It makes it even more ridiculous. But like I said, I found a Reddit post on Gaming Circle Jerk, and I'm just going to read you some of it. Maybe some replies as well. We'll see how we're doing for time, because I know a lot of you kindly sent me some replies of your own, and some of them are quite long, so I wanted to get to them more than this. Torio98, I'm guessing 98 because they were born in 1998, so a bit younger than me. People who were with the anti-woke mindset, why did you engage with that culture, and what made you change your mind? So they say, my mental state was not good. During September 2017, for a lot of reasons, my mental health was bad. I was suffering from a bad case of imposter syndrome. I'd recently moved from my hometown to attend university, and I had lost my grandpa. I did not feel okay, and my behaviour was not helping the situation at university. I was a loner. At the apartment, I was almost always alone, and I had problems all the time with my girlfriend. To distract myself, I decided to get back into comic books. In the period, Marvel was trying to introduce some new woke changes, like introducing Ironheart, Miles Morales, Mrs. Marvel, and reworking Captain Marvel. Those first issues were not good and did not sell very well, so the sentiment on the comic book YouTube channels I followed at the time was something like what you can see in the gaming community nowadays, including the pronouns argument and the go woke, go broke. At the time, I was not emotionally okay, and my unhealthy coping mechanisms were YouTube and comics. I was really falling into the rabbit hole of the alt-right YouTube videos of a nation I didn't even live in. I'm Italian. Soon, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, and anti-woke comic YouTubers like them, what I watched every day, and my online behaviour mirrored that. Everything was like that until summer 2018. Before summer break, I had already realised my life sucked and that I hated being angry every day because of things out of my control. So as soon as the chance of going back to my hometown for summer presented itself, I went home and slowly but surely got better. I tried to go out with my girlfriend more and more. I made an effort to meet new people, reconnect old friends. I tried to be less chronically online. I tried to interact less and less with those YouTubers, talking about like things they did basically to live in the real world instead of the online world. And then one saying, actually getting to meet a gay guy and realizing they are not something you have to fear and protect yourself against, but just normal people. Who would have thought not me? And then what would I say to people in a similar situation? Try to understand why you are angry. Talk with people face to face. Do not try to seek guidance from YouTube gurus and get therapy. Please, for the love of God, go talk to a psychologist. They studied for at least 9 years for a reason. So the story that guy tells, a guy from Italy, like a young guy, isn't very surprising to most people who've read about this stuff. There is something that attracts people to these content creators that blame minorities, blame the woke agenda for things being bad, right? They have their own personal things to deal with. When you hear a guy like this explain his story, there's very personal issues they're dealing with, and they look to something to cope with it. And like I said, it always seems pretty clear to me when you argue with these people, there is something wrong with them. And I guess there is hope for some of them still, especially when they're younger, because you have to go out in the real world. Because if you stay in your room, like this guy was, being a loner, and all you consume is hate-filled garbage, sometimes, like he was saying, the first issues of something are bad. I remember with like The Last Jedi, Force Awakens, people didn't really like those movies, especially The Last Jedi, and they're wondering, why don't I like this? Why is this bad? And then you have a bunch of people online telling teenagers, oh yes, you're right to dislike this. And it's because they try to shoehorn in diversity at the expense of your favourite franchise. Therefore, left-wing, woke SJWs are ruining everything you love because they hate you or something. And I think it makes them more susceptible to that message when in their own personal life, they haven't got much going on, and they are a bit of a loner. But also, I'm not saying that if you are someone like this guy, you automatically become a hate-filled bigot, because plenty of lovely, normal people often find themselves in lonely circumstances and often find themselves with hard, lives and stuff, and they don't turn to this bigotry. But it also is a factor you see a lot in these stories. But anyway, obviously I said a lot of you guys had wrote what you thought, so I tweeted, people who are former anti-SJWs, what made you change your mind on being one? So I'm just going to run through some. Sorry that I don't provide too much commentary on them, but I did want to share with everyone what you guys wrote on Twitter. The Instagram ones I want to focus on a bit more because they're more detailed. Hexen saying, personally, I dropped that phase when I entered the real world outside of uni and became an Uber driver and then later a video editor and agency where in both instances I was heavily exploited. Learned very quickly where the power lies, and it ain't with obnoxious art students. Growing up and reading, 12-year-olds are always rebellious, plus my sister was a feminist, so I had to oppose it. Yeah, like I said, a lot of contrarians here. Studying history in university, getting an education or just critical thinking skills from an education does help you be less susceptible to this stuff, although not immune to it. So Cyrus saying, realizing I was wrong scientifically and statistically about a lot of the issues presented by the old guard of SJW types. The wage gap, Marxism, BLM, gender, taking time to research those things and going, I'm wrong, did a ton. This is going to sound stupid. I wasn't an anti-SJW, but I hated DC Comics so much that I wanted to watch videos that were hating on DC. So I started to watch anti-SJW videos about Batwoman and stuff. I think about 1 year later, it's one of your videos on Brie Larson that changed me, which is pretty awesome from Pranav there, that I had some sort of influence. But that is kind of like what I was saying with The Last Jedi as well. Like, a lot of people were just confused about why they hated stuff, and then they see people giving them an easy answer, and they decide, oh yeah, they must be right then. So thanks to everyone sending me those on Twitter. Sorry I couldn't read more. But I did get some on Instagram as well, and I thought I'd share them. So from Anonymous, this was over a decade ago and pre-transition, but having an in-real-life friend made me question my beliefs before I looked more into the issues myself, both individual research and humanities classes. Now it's hard to believe I was ever like that at one point. Sometimes people just need to be willing to learn and listen to the right people. So this one from Rachel is kind of what I was talking about earlier about like growing up in like a more conservative household. So Rachel's saying, I grew up conservative socially, economically, politically, full stop. Around 2012, 2013, I found anti-SJW content and I latched onto it. I was able to see everything I wasn't supposed to be or believe, even the moments I caught myself saying, wait, but the SJWs were kind of right. I'd tell myself I was being too emotional about it. come to find out seeming emotional to people on the right is actually just showing humanity, and they don't understand that. I didn't either. I was truly in the mindset America is a place of wonder where anyone can be their best selves. I'd rather explain a little how I got out. It was the people around me. I started noticing it first in my mum, a woman, not super young or thin, single mum. I'd watched her work 10 times as hard as the men around her. She was still there 10 to 11 p.m. working on spreadsheets. With her being in the finance department, she was able to see how many people were being paid. She came home one day crying, defeated, finding out she made 20 to 40k less than her male counterparts. And even in that moment, we were still both right of the line. I was slowly seeing the line fade, physically seeing things SJWs fight for happening to someone I love open the floodgates. It took another 10 years for me to get to where I am now, which is a raging anti-capitalist and a full-on SJW. I'm thankful I was able to bring my family with me, and funnily enough, it's YouTubers like you that helped video essays quite literally de-radicalize my whole family. So that one from Rachel is interesting there, mainly because it goes to what people are saying is that if you experience like real life and in this like, you know, capitalist America, then it's hard to reconcile like what your family, friends, or even yourself are going through with the version that anti-SJWs or, you know, conservatives generally hold up of America being awesome, patriotism being awesome. Anything subversive to that is bad and woke. Any films with messaging that might, you know, promote equality, bad and woke. Only things that promote America being great, like Top Gun or something, that's good. But everything else is bad. Any of your Marvel comics have any of this in, like Miles Morales comics, then yeah, that's woke and bad too, trying to indoctrinate you in maybe like anti-American propaganda. But yeah, it feels like the best cure to be an anti-SJW sometimes is experiencing life more fully off the internet, whether that be, you know, like someone was saying, being an Uber driver and being exploited, or Rachel saying like what her mum went through, or people just saying, you know, I went back home to Italy and just, you know, tried to have healthier relationships with my friends and girlfriend. That got me at that mindset. And it feels like most people who are anti-SJWs and anti-woke are fundamentally miserable, and the people who are like thought leaders in that are usually miserable themselves, or they're actually just massive grifters who are profiting off this misery and just driving their hatred against things that don't need the hatred. And that's often what happens, is that you see sometimes anti-SJWs will critique something for being bad, and you're like, yeah, that is bad. You know, Marvel films are getting worse. They are getting worse in quality. But it's not because of wokeness. It's because of capitalist exploitation of the people who make those films outside the leading talent being overworked and treated bad. Therefore, the final product is also bad. I made a whole video about that. But yeah, sometimes they tap into anger or hatred or people not liking something, but they direct it the complete wrong way, and the anger is completely focused on the wrong target. So Inglorious Beastar saying, at the time I would not have realised my stance with anti-SJW, but I very much was from the ages of 8 to 15. That was because I primarily encountered topics of social justice in the context of people at school who use it as an excuse to be mean, because it seems even if people recognise racism and sexism, they feel in their right to crap all over autistic people or ignore disabled people, in the case of a lot of my friends. For what changed my mind, I lived in Shanghai amongst wealthy expats, elite locals whose parents pushed their kids way too hard, then lived almost the opposite after my parents divorced and we moved back to the UK, where I spent the rest of my childhood mostly surrounded by other working class people, went to 4 different schools. That has meant I've met people of many nationalities, different economic backgrounds, genders and sexualities from day one. It showed me there's absolute pillocks and lovely people wherever you go, whoever you are, which helped me detach certain political and historical narratives about different demographics and allow me to be better educated in theory, practice and anecdotally from people I met to better inform my worldview. So what B-Star was saying there is interesting, because it reflects actually what happens to a lot of American people. Like obviously, you know, that isn't the typical American upbringing and education, but what happens in America is you grow up in like the stereotypical small town conservative place with the school where mostly everyone is white. Then you go to college and everyone says, oh, the colleges have indoctrinated you in wokeness or leftism. But what actually happens is you go to college where people from all across America and even around the world go to, you realise there's much more to life than just your small town conservatism and like white conservative American culture. And you just get exposed to like what the real world is like. So you get out of your small like bubble, you get out of that mindset and you realise, yeah, I've been taught to hate X, Y, and Z my whole life. Now I've met them and they're just like me. And basically everything my parents told me and my community told me was wrong. Therefore, I'm more susceptible to wokeness and being more on the left, because conservatism just promotes a world that is unrealistic and also very exclusionary, and one I don't really want to be a part of. And that seems to be the case here, but it seems to be the case with so many people. And that's why the right wing always like to say universities indoctrinate people in leftism. I'd say most of the indoctrination is just people meeting other people who aren't like them and realizing, like, yes, humans are fundamentally the same. And you realize all the groups that have been demonized your whole life, like I said, just like you. So I found that to be like an interesting little case study of how people often like leave behind their more conservative views. So no saying, personally for me, I was really into channels like Shoe on Head and Armored Skeptic until I just fell out of interest with them and politics in general for a long time. Then one of my closest friends came out as non-binary and I realised I was bisexual. So pretty much it was mostly out of me just learning primarily that the queer community are in fact people, as I was quite homophobic and transphobic before because of them, and anti-feminist, which in hindsight I'm happy that my mum at the time shunned me for liking such ideas because she's a feminist. So again, it just seems to be like actually experiencing communities that these content creators hate, like basically just deprograms you in a lot of cases. So Angelo saying, I grew up super conservative and I was 17 to 18 during the anti-SJW YouTuber phase, and it was a huge part of my personality. A couple of things really pushed me away from it related to my identity being queer and Jewish. The white pride anti-Semitism definitely drove me away, but I think the biggest thing is being a conservative or anti-SJW requires you to not have empathy or suppress any empathy for fellow human beings. And yeah, that's the case, I guess, for most conservatism. You only have empathy for your own like community, right? Which is usually other white conservatives or just general American conservatives. And that's how you justify all these terrible things being done to immigrants, refugees, being done to left-wing people, basically dehumanizing them. But you still feel some sort of empathy for your own community. But to be in this community in the first place, you just have to basically deny the humanity of so many other groups of people. If that comes from meeting people or reading more, once you gain this humanity and empathy, it's very hard to stay a conservative. I got a couple more. I wasn't really in that bubble for very long. At the time, I think I was only 16, 17. So I think immaturity and not understanding what the F I was even talking about played a big role. That's probably what you're going to find a lot of people say about their experience. Before I fell into that hole, I was a young, flamboyant, pink-haired liberal, trans kid, and unsupported by some of my less progressive family. And I was desperate for a way to win approval from them and others. After coming across right-wing YouTubers like Blair White, I came to the conclusion that the reason cis people don't like us is because we embarrass ourselves with our crazy hair and pronouns, and if we just tried to fit in with them, we could obtain support. So I adjusted myself to fit those standards, dressing traditionally masculine, mocking my trans brothers and sisters that didn't hate themselves like I did. But after a while living like that, I realised that I was so miserable, and I was hurting the already vulnerable people I should be loving and giving my support to. I was bullying the people that would fight for me to appease the people that would wipe me off the face of the earth if they could. So I find that really interesting and like quite a sad one. And that kind of shows why often conservative grifters like Blair White for trans people, or, you know, anyone from a marginalised group, Dave Rubin for gay people, or even like Candace Owens for like African Americans, why they can be so dangerous is that although a lot of their community will reject them, like, yeah, loads of trans people are not listening to Blair White and her views on how trans people can fit in and stuff like that. But there's always going to be someone who is like, oh, you know, if Blair White says it, she's transgender. So I've got to be, you know, I've got to listen to her. I've got to listen to what she says. And, you know, if she says that because all these trans people are too flamboyant and, you know, dye their hair blue, then she's probably onto something and I should listen to Blair. But I'm glad this person got out of that. But it is like a horrible thing to go through, especially when you might not have support from your own family and you're asking yourselves why. Like, why do they hate me? And someone may be offering you the answer of, well, they don't hate you just because you're trans. They hate you because of X, Y, and Z. So do this and they might accept you. Obviously, it's super toxic. And it's why I find these, you know, Candace Owens, Dave Rubin, Blair White particularly gross. So I got one more for you. Michael Brooks really brought me out of being a libertarian. You, The Majority Report, and the boys from the Deprogram podcast. I had never heard another opinion. I'm from a small town in Illinois, and we were raised in America good, socialism bad, with literally no explanation. I was privileged and selfish enough to be in the I just want my stuff to be mine and live alone far from everyone mindset, until I got out of my insulated bubble and recognized the horrors of capitalism on people who are wealthy and white. I think Michael really brought home the realism on the myth of meritocracy and the innate bias I had that skewed my perception. Once you stop listening to these people funded by fracking billionaires, empathy sets in and you realize we have more houses than people, more food that can be eaten, and more expensive yet worse healthcare than anywhere else in the world, and it's just a matter of how it's organized or hoarded. So I think we're getting... So obviously this is a small sample size. I think the common theme throughout it is most anti-SJWs are born conservative because they grew up in conservative communities with conservative family, right? I would be absolutely shocked if there was a significant contingent of people who were either anti-SJWs in 2018 or even now who used to be communists or socialists, right? I think that just doesn't really exist, because once you have kind of broken down the walls of, I don't know, like capitalism being this giant lie we're all fed about being the best system on earth, or patriotism for Americans, or even, you know, people in Europe as well, I don't think you can go back. Like, sure, we do have those contrarian grifters like Jimmy Dore and those types who did maybe used to be more left-leaning and now might be more right-wing, but at the same time, being like an anti-SJW, you have to go back and also be more stupid as well, because their critiques like make no sense fundamentally. They're stupid, misdirecting anger at like stuff like diversity. They don't really make sense. But yeah, it seems like growing up in small town America, growing up in conservative families, where you're brainwashed that anything left is bad, conservatism, America, capitalism, all awesome. So yeah, very interesting on all of that. I feel like the underlying point is once you get out there and you just experience real life, good and bad, that really pops the conservative bubble, because either you realize that yes, the left-wing people are right about capitalism and modern life sucks in a lot of ways because of capitalism, not because of PC culture and minorities getting jobs or something, but also you might experience like having great relationships with people that you were taught to hate, whether that be refugees, immigrants, the LGBT community, whatever. You finally realize that, yes, people are all the same, good and bad, and you shouldn't hate someone because you're told to by like white racists and white bigots. And I just think the conservative illusion can't really last when you get exposed to different ways of thinking and different cultures. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting one today just because I saw that post. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.